I like Enchanter supports, and they're pretty similar, but there are trade-offs between champions and their rune choices. So to help compare them, there's average stats from NA Diamond games. You can click a champion portrait to see meta rune paths for that champ, and from there you can click a tree to see stats for that setup. In this case, only area and comet are shown because the alternative is taken less than 10% of the time. And you can click a stat to help visualize it. So, for example, if you want to see Janna's damage dealt for the different paths, you can get a graph by clicking damage dealt on her page, or if you want to see the damage by keystone for a certain path, you can click that stat on the paths page. I also wrote some comments at the bottom of the page about the champions and runes I consider interesting or significant for that champion. So feel free to ignore that if you want and only look at the stats, but I think it helps explain why the stats are the way they are and why certain setups are good for a champion or don't fit them that well. There are some surprising results, like maybe Janna's laning strength, but that makes sense though, because even though traditionally she's always been a passive scaling champion, now she's got much more damage early with her W. Um, on the other hand, there are some numbers that I would say to take with a grain of salt, like water walking's win rate. I don't think water walking is actually OP. It's more likely that even though the sample of Jenna games is large enough in general, there weren't that many that took water walking, so one person winning with it could have had a big effect on the sample. And even for something like Jenna's early game win rate or late game win rate, it could be that there aren't very many games that end before 20 minutes, so that sample is smaller than it probably should be. But overall, I think the statistics are at least a useful starting point.